What's up, Aether Primus community? This is Jason, and here I am with my reshade settings for Metroid Prime Echoes. So if you've seen my new Let's Play over on the Samus Prime channel, then you know I've promised I would show you guys in depth my settings for reshade. So let's go ahead and do that and get started. I'm really raring to go. Got the settings actually already dialed in here, but I'm going to show you more. Here, I'm actually presenting this part of the video, and the gameplay here is in 1080p. Reason being, if I had it in 4K, you wouldn't be able to see this text for any of these shaders at all. The UI would just be tiny. So I'm doing it in 4K so you guys can actually see and read this. So there are a ton of shaders in Reshade now, and as you can see, I actually have quite a few downloaded, but I'm only using a handful. A total of 7 here, and the reason why I'm using these particular ones are because I feel like they accent the game and they look great. So let's take a closer look at what each one does and the settings that I'm using for that particular shader. First one here is Ambient Light. Now Ambient Light, as you can see, it kind of adds a soft washed out glow to the game, which I like. It's kind of like a global light, but also it adds this effect that you actually can add on here. Now this isn't checked by default, so you got to make sure you check it, but this is the lens effect, and what this does is it adds this slight like dirty lens effect to Samus' visor that I really like. I think it looks good, it looks realistic. So let's kind of see if we can get it dialed in here. As you can see, it's kind of hard to see in this room. There we go. Now you can see it down in that corner there. See, it's down here in this here corner. You see that effect. And if I turn it off, you see it's gone. So it's subtle. You can turn this up too and turn it down. You can make it really blown out. If you turn here the intensity of the effect up, as you can see. Oh, actually, that's from that angle. It's a little harder to see, but actually what it does is it makes more of the screen under the effect. So I usually like it more in the corner of the screen because there's the other effect that I use that adds a little more dirt to it, and I'm going to show you that one now. That one is the Ppfx Bloom. And as you can see, it didn't add any bloom really to the light. If we look over at the light source, one of the issues I used to have with these bloom effects is it would blow everything out and make it look really saturated and ugly. And so what I've done with this one, as you can see, it doesn't add any additional bloom really. All it's adding is these little specks that you see over here. And that is actually under here, enable lens dirt. So you have to enable this to get that effect, and then you can play with that down here with the intensity as well. See if I can turn it up. And you see there, it's very apparent. But I don't like it to be that strong, so I've got to turn quite a bit actually down to right around there. And I just like it because it shows up when you're moving and certain lights hit it. It kind of simulates what dirt or smudges on her visor would look like, I think. Alright, so the next one I'm using is Bloom and Lens Flare. And this one I have adding a little bit of bloom. I like the bloom in this one, and the reason why I use the bloom in this one is because I actually disabled the bloom, the Wii bloom that's in the game natively, and you do that through Prime Hack. And and I'm doing this video with the understanding that you guys have a baseline knowledge of how to install and use Reshade. You're already using it. You're already using Prime Hack. I'm going to do a more comprehensive video in the future that goes into more detail on how to install Prime Hack, what it does, all the features, as well as how to install Reshade. And I'm going to do that not too distant future. I want to make sure I put a lot of work into that video and go into a lot of detail. I'm going to work with the Prime Hack team directly, namely Sir Mangler and Mr. Mendelli, to make sure I have the proper understanding of everything so that when I present it, it's 100% accurate, and you guys can use that as a baseline of installing and getting started. So hopefully you guys have an understanding. If not, don't worry, I'll be doing a video in the future, hopefully soon, to show more on how to install it, get it set up and everything. But this is just going into my settings only. So again, here in the lens flare, there's actually let's see, this little ring of light. See it? Those little flares there. that kind of show up in certain lights, and then with her cannon charge, they show up. See, then they disappear without. When I fire right there, you can see them. And I like that. I use that mainly just for the little extra effect. It only happens on the brightest of lights, and you can change how many rings it has, how wide it is. I can make it, you know, a little bit thinner. Turn the amount down the hair, and then so you can play with that, and you can also just take it off too if you don't like it. And then so with these lighting effects, what it does is it kind of washes out the image a little bit. So I use this HDR shader, and it kind of darkens and adds a little more contrast. I use this clarity shader, and this just adds a little bit more clarity to the image, I feel, so you can see some of the contrast a little more. And then the film grain adds that gritty look that I feel the game is lacking once you go into an HD resolution. When you push the internal resolution and the output resolution of the game to 4K, it, you know, sharpens things so much so that I think you lose a lot of that dirty atmosphere feel that you get in the GameCube original. So I've added the film grain in order to kind of bring a little bit of that feel back, and you can turn that down or up depending on how gritty you want it. One thing you have to take into account though is what resolution you're going to be playing and recording the game in. If you're going to be playing the game in 4K and output and everything, you know, 4K, then you're going to want to crank this up a little higher, because the higher the resolution, the smaller this grit, the finer some of these effects are going to be. So depending on the native resolution of the game and what you're playing the game in, you're going to have to make adjustments to some of these settings. The curves adds a little bit more punch to the color, which I can live without too. I like a more dull look as well, but I find that when it comes to putting the videos, recording this and putting it up on YouTube, the compression on YouTube kind of muddies up the color some, so I feel like this helps to saturate it a little bit, as well as the clarity kind of helps to combat some of that YouTube compression as well. As far as sharpening, I know some people like to use adaptive sharpen and other sharpening. I don't use those because I'm using AI upscaled textures in the game anyway, so I don't feel like it needs it, and it can add even more noise. And if you're using film grain, you don't want to use sharpen. You'll want to use one or the other. And yeah, so that is the shaders I'm using. If you want to take a closer look at each of the settings I am using, I'll go ahead and I'll scroll through them now. Just go ahead and pause the screen. This is the ambient light shader here. Here's the bloom shader, and again I'm using mainly this part of this shader here, the flare, the chap flare here. Here is the clarity shader. I'm using the hard light blend mode, and this will also kind of change it, gets a little bit different effects depending on the blend mode. The soft light looks nice too. Here are my curve settings. Here's the HDR or fake HDR settings. Film grain 2 settings. Here is the Ppfx Bloom. And again, it's the enable lens dirt I'm using on here. I'm not using any of the bloom itself, just this shader, part of the shader here. And that's how I got that look. Let's go ahead and get over here. So I can actually switch over to my 4K screen here, I think. Let's see. Let me know what you guys think about the format of these videos I'm doing now. I really like this kind of live feel, you know, or if I mess up too bad, I guess I have to re-record the whole video because I'm not editing, but it just kind of feels good, and it kind of preps me for my live stream, and I feel like it presents me in the best light as far as everything I do with the music and everything else, you know. So if we take a look here though, yeah, in 4K, man, it looks nice. But as you can see, that kind of loses a little bit of that intensity on the film grain. See what I mean about the UI? In 4K, it's so hard to see. So let me go into film grain, and in here, man, it's so hard to see. Okay, there we are. So if you crank up the film grain a little bit here, by quite a bit actually. Get a little bit of that noise in there that I like, and it kind of brightens the image too. You know what, that's probably a little too high. That's actually way too high. Hold on, let me turn that back down. Oh yeah. There we go, that's closer to where I have it in my Let's Play. Actually, I can just switch over to those settings here. There they are. A little bit more bloom I have in this too. But yeah, man, doesn't look bad. Definitely with the upscaled textures too, looks pretty sharp. Nothing near as amazing as a complete remake would be, but hey, we got to do what we got to do, man. But yeah, I'm really excited to continue to bring these videos to you guys. I hope you guys are enjoying the new content. I hope you enjoy the new format. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys real soon with the next video. You guys have a good one, man. See what I mean about the live format? I'm like, wait a minute, outro. There you go. You guys have a good one.